The smell of beef sliders and cheap cologne hit me before the front door even closed behind me. I was halfway through peeling off my windbreaker when I saw the table of name tags by the entryway, each neatly written in Dad's blocky handwriting. Most had standard labels: Cousin Jamie, Uncle Mike, Cheryl, Mike's wife, but one stood out in thick red ink: the disappointment. I stood there, windbreaker half off, fingers frozen around the cuff, staring at it like it might change if I blinked. It didn't. It was meant for me. 3 hours earlier. I had almost skipped the party. I usually did. The last few years, I'd sent a text, a polite excuse, maybe a belated gift card. But this year was his 60th, and my sister Claire made it clear that if I didn't show up, she wouldn't cover for me anymore. "He still introduces you as his other son," she'd said on the phone last week. "Don't give him another reason to write you off." It stung because it was true, and still I'd almost stayed home. But then I pictured Claire trying to field everyone's questions, smiling too tight, drinking too fast to cope. I figured maybe this time I could absorb some of the hits for her. So I showed up, took a train across the state, rented a car, wore an actual collared shirt. I even brought him a bottle of Glenlivet he used to drink back when he still invited me fishing, and he greeted me at the door like a stranger. "Oh, you came." That was it. No, "Hey, son." No, "Thanks for making the trip." Just a flat acknowledgement, followed by a sidestep so I could enter the living room. The living room. The place hadn't changed since I was 12. Same dark wood paneling, same cracked leather recliner in the corner, like a throne no one else was allowed to sit in. The kind of suburban castle where nothing ages gracefully, just predictably. It was packed. Cousins I hadn't seen in a decade, co-workers of his I barely recognized, a few neighbors I only knew by nickname: Big Phil, Jan from HOA, that guy with the Camaro. The TV was muted but playing some football highlight reel, and a Bluetooth speaker near the bookshelf pushed out soft jazz over the low murmur of mingling voices. Claire found me first. She hugged me a little too tightly and didn't let go right away. "Thank you," she whispered, and I didn't know if she meant for coming, for existing, or for something else altogether. Then she saw the name tag, the tag table. I didn't even need to say anything. "Shit," she muttered, already moving. "He said he was getting creative. I didn't think he meant this." I looked down again. The disappointment. Written right below the printed line that said, "Hello, my name is." Claire peeled it off the table and crumpled it in her fist like she could erase it from memory. Then she handed me a blank one and a Sharpie. "Write whatever you want." Or nothing, you don't even have to wear one. I took the pen, wrote Ethan in small boring letters, but the sting stuck. First encounter. Dad was holding court in the kitchen with his buddies from work, laughing loud, retelling stories I could probably narrate from memory. Claire drifted away to check the buffet, and I stood there in the archway like a ghost in my own childhood home. He finally noticed me when one of the guys, a barrel-chested guy in a utility vest, asked, "Hey, Chuck, that your boy?" Dad glanced over, eyes narrowed. "Yup," he said after a beat. "That's the one who majored in philosophy." Cue laughter. The utility guy grinned. "Oh, one of those. You flipping burgers or changing the world?" "Bit of both," I said, trying to smile. "Food co-op in Philly, farm-to-table logistics." "Sounds like commie talk," he said, and everyone laughed again. I laughed too, but it was that tight, polite laugh you give when you're waiting for a bus that's late and someone tells a joke you've heard 5 times. Backyard retreat. I escaped to the back porch with a paper plate and the bottle of Glenlivet under my arm. The stars were starting to show through the dying daylight, and the bug zapper cracked softly every few minutes. It used to be quieter out here. I'd sit on the porch steps with my dog Max and a comic book. Now the fence was taller, the trees were trimmed back, and Max was buried near the shed. I heard the sliding door open behind me. Claire stepped out, nursing a plastic cup of wine. "Still breathing?" she asked. "Barely." She sat next to me, didn't speak for a while. Then, "He's not going to change, you know." I nodded. He was just telling everyone how proud he is of your cousin Nate. Got promoted at the firm, married a dentist, just bought a boat. Nate's allergic to sunlight, I said. She smirked. And you're allergic to Dad. Fair, dinner table circus. When the cake came out, people started giving toasts. It was exactly as bad as it sounds. One of his old co-workers toasted, "The hardest worker I've ever known." Nate toasted, "The man who taught me how to negotiate and win." Claire toasted, "The father who always showed up, even when it was hard. When it got to me, everyone looked my way." I stood slowly, clinked my glass. "I didn't prepare anything," I said. Someone chuckled. "But he did teach me one thing." I paused. "How not to apologize for who you are." A few polite nods, a few blank stares. I sat down before the silence could spread. He didn't even look at me. Later, most guests had left. Claire was cleaning up. I was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes, mostly so I didn't have to talk. The water ran hot, too hot, but I didn't adjust it. Dad came in behind me, opened the fridge, grabbed a beer. "Surprised you stayed this long," he said. "Me too." He popped the cap, leaned against the counter. "You mad about the name tag?" I kept scrubbing. "No," I lied. He took a swig, then gave this shrug like the whole thing was beneath discussion. "You always were too sensitive." I set the plate down, turned off the water. "Or maybe you were always just kind of a dick," I said quietly. He blinked, like it was the first time he heard me speak in years. Then, "Well, guess that makes two disappointments in the room now." The silence after his line hung in the kitchen like steam. I wasn't proud of what I'd said, but I wasn't sorry either. It was one of those truths that just sits there, heavy, undeniable, like a bruise you didn't realize you had until someone pokes it. Dad didn't move, just leaned there, bottle half raised, the corner of his mouth twitching like he was weighing whether to escalate or walk away. He took a long pull from the beer instead. Then he left the room. Aftermath in the kitchen. I stared at the plate still in the sink. The suds had started to thin out, leaving behind greasy water. My hands were wet, trembling a little, but not from fear. More like release. It wasn't cathartic. Don't get me wrong, I didn't feel better. There wasn't some weight magically lifted or a triumphant movie moment, but it felt real, like I finally stopped tiptoeing around his approval like it was a prize I hadn't earned. Claire came back in holding a tray of used forks and crumpled napkins. "Tell me you didn't throw hands," she said. "No," I said, "just truths." She sighed and set the tray down. "That's almost worse." The garage detour. I needed air, not porch air, not polite party air. I needed garage air. The cold, metallic kind that smells like old paint, motor oil, and whatever project Dad started and never finished. I slipped out the side door and flicked on the light. The bulb buzzed to life, casting a yellow circle over the workbench. Tools still perfectly aligned on the pegboard. That old red Craftsman toolbox, rusted at the corners, still parked like a shrine under the window. I sat on the stool beside the bench, the one I used to balance on while he worked on his mower or patched up fishing rods. Back then, I'd hand him wrenches and ask questions about gears and blades and two-stroke engines. He'd grunt answers. I thought that was bonding. I looked up at the pegboard now. A space was missing where a handsaw used to hang. The outline was still there in dust. Funny how clear the absence of something can be. Flashback, age 14. It hit me in a strange wave, something I hadn't remembered in years. I was 14, scrawny, knees bruised from bike tricks I couldn't land. I'd gotten my first D on a math quiz and panicked. I came into the garage and told him, voice cracking. He didn't look up from his work. "You want a medal for failing?" "No," I started. "Then fix it." "Or don't. But don't waste my time whining." That was the first time I learned not to bring my worries to him. And I didn't after that. Not about the panic attacks junior year, not about dropping out of grad school, not about getting fired last November, back inside the gift table. Most of the guests were gone now. Claire was putting away leftover cake. Nate had left earlier, of course. He'd only dropped in long enough to make a toast and post a photo with Dad to Instagram with the caption, "3 generations of winners." I walked over to the gift table. The Glenlivet was still there, unopened. I knew he wouldn't touch it. Dad had stopped drinking whiskey 4 years ago when his blood pressure spiked. He hadn't told anyone until after the fact, and he sure as hell hadn't updated the rest of us. I stood there, looking at the bottle, wondering if I should just take it back. Maybe use it for New Year's, maybe smash it in the driveway, something dramatic. Instead, I picked it up, looked for a card, and slid it underneath. Maybe it was pointless, maybe it was passive, but it felt cleaner than anything I could say now. Claire's room. I crashed in Claire's old room that night. She'd turned it into a guest space, sort of. Same wallpaper, same twin bed, now with a laptop desk and a potted plant trying its best in the corner. She brought me a blanket and sat on the edge of the bed. "Do you want me to say it?" she asked. I didn't answer. "That you're not a disappointment." I looked at her. "You don't have to fix it," I said. "I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to remind you you're not crazy." I let the silence settle. "I could have done more," I said finally. She frowned. "Ethan, you tried harder than anyone. You showed up. You keep showing up." "Yeah, but maybe that's the problem," I said, forcing a laugh. "Maybe I just keep thinking he's going to say something different next time." She squeezed my shoulder. "I stopped expecting that years ago." Then she got up, said goodnight, and turned off the light. Next morning, coffee and avoidance. I woke up early, didn't mean to, but I always sleep light in this house. Too many memories in the drywall, too many passive-aggressive ghosts in the corners. Claire was still out cold. Dad was already up, watching the news with the volume too low and the captions too fast. I poured myself coffee in a chipped mug that said #1 coach. He'd never coached anything. We sat in silence for a few minutes. The only sound was the spoon clinking against the side of his mug. Then he said, without turning, "I kept the name tag." My stomach knotted. He reached into the side drawer by his recliner and pulled out the little sticker, smoothed it out, held it up. "Guess I thought it was funny," he said. "Didn't think you'd take it so hard." I stared at him. "You wrote it in red Sharpie." He shrugged. "Better than writing failure." That landed like a slap. "You really think that?" I asked. He finally looked at me, not smiling, not smirking, just tired. "I think you're not what I expected." I exhaled slowly. "I'm not Nate." "I get it." "No, you're not," he said. "He does what's expected. You do whatever the hell you want." I didn't know what to say to that. Then he added, "But at least you showed up." Departure. Claire hugged me tight before I left. "Text me when you get in," she said. Dad stayed on the porch while I put my bag in the trunk. He looked smaller in the daylight. Less myth, more man. I turned to go, then paused. "Hey," I said, "I'm not coming to Thanksgiving." He nodded. "Didn't think you would." I waited, for anything. He raised his coffee mug. "Drive safe." That was it. I got in the car, turned on the ignition. The Glenlivet bottle was on the passenger seat. Claire must have slipped it in. I almost laughed. Almost. I didn't go straight home after I left. Instead, I took a long detour off the interstate, cut through some back roads near where we used to fish. There was this lake, Duck Hollow, that Dad used to swear was the best-kept secret in the state. He hadn't taken me there since I was 17. I parked near the trailhead and brought the Glenlivet with me. No plan, just something told me this was where it needed to go. The dock. The old wooden dock was still there, though now warped and silvered from years of sun. It creaked under my weight like it used to when I was a kid, barefoot and sunburnt, bait box in hand. I sat at the edge, legs dangling over the water. The lake was still, glassy, not a soul around, just birds and the occasional ripple from a fish I'd never catch. I uncapped the bottle, took one sip. It burned the way it used to, familiar, sharp. I never liked whiskey, still didn't, But this wasn't about taste. I poured the rest into the water. Maybe it was petty. Maybe it was symbolic. Maybe it was just a way to feel like I could choose how this story ended. The ripples spread, faded. I watched them until they disappeared. The text. That night, back in Philly, I got a text from Claire. He asked if you got home safe, didn't say it like a question, just mumbled it during Wheel of Fortune. I stared at the screen, didn't reply. Then I turned off my phone and lay on my mattress on the floor. My apartment was still mostly boxes from the movie 2 months ago. I hadn't even unpacked the toaster, but for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like running. 6 weeks later, Thanksgiving came and went. I didn't go. Claire called me from the bathroom in between courses. Guess who brought up your name? Let me guess. Nate, trying to humble brag again. She laughed. Nope, Dad, said it was quieter without you. Then he stared into the green bean casserole like it owed him rent. I smiled in spite of myself. Anyway, she continued, just wanted to say it wasn't terrible. I kept a plate for you. You're 3 hours away, Claire. And yet I still love you more than our father does. Fair. We hung up, and I spent the rest of the day cooking for myself, just spaghetti and garlic bread. Nothing fancy, but it was the first holiday in years I didn't spend hiding in someone else's version of tradition. Christmas. The card came in the mail, plain white envelope, no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside, one sheet of paper, folded once. Ethan, I thought about what you said. Maybe I was a dick. Okay, I was a dick. I don't know how to fix that, but if you're ever around, the garage could use reorganizing. Or not. Up to you. Dad, there was a $20 bill paper-clipped to the corner. I laughed so hard I dropped the card in my lap. Typical. Apology in the form of half-assed bribery and manual labor. Still, it was the closest thing to an olive branch he'd ever offered. January. I didn't call him, not right away. But I did start replying to Claire's group texts again. I even joined a call with her and our cousin Jamie, where we played dumb trivia games and made fun of a TV movie she insisted we watch. I took small jobs at the co-op. Started writing again. Applied to a non-profit downtown that ran food education workshops. No grand rebranding. Just quiet, honest steps forward. Then, one Saturday afternoon, while organising my junk drawer, I found a beat-up name tag. Not the one from the party. Claire threw that one out. This was an old one, from high school orientation. Ethan Walker, volunteer. I stared at it for a long time, thought about who I was then, who I tried to be, and who I'd slowly become. Then I stuck it to the fridge. March, the visit. I finally went back. Not for a holiday, not for Claire, just because I wanted to see what would happen. I texted him a week before. Hey, I'm thinking of visiting. You around next Saturday? He replied 5 minutes later. Garage still looks like a war zone. Bring gloves. I pulled into the driveway at noon. He met me at the door. Still hate whiskey? He asked. Still hate judgment, I replied. He nodded. Fair. We didn't hug, that wasn't us, but he handed me a cup of gas station coffee, already black the way I like it. That was something. The garage, again. We worked side by side for hours, clearing shelves, untangling cords, tossing out rusted crap that hadn't worked since Bush was president. At one point he handed me a box labelled Ethan's Crap. Inside, old fishing lures, a busted wristwatch, a pocket knife I'd forgotten existed. Figured you'd want that, he said. Or not. I looked through it. Thanks, I said. Then, you could have just written my name at the party. He didn't look up, just kept sorting bolts. Yeah, he muttered. Guess I could have. No apology, but no denial either. Closing. Before I left, he handed me a new name tag, blank, a Sharpie taped to it. He didn't say anything. I took it. In the car, I peeled the sticker, wrote just one word in thick, clean letters. Trying. Then I stuck it to the dash and drove home with the windows down.